Thank you guys so much for being here today. As Jose mentioned, my name is Shayne Baker, and I have been blessed to work in ministry for over 10 years. I'm currently working with Catholic Charities, doing very similar things, working towards the alleviation and eradication of malnutrition and food insecurity. So this is a ministry that's also very, very important to me, especially as it involves children and just helping better the lives of God's people on earth. So as I mentioned, I've been in ministry for 10 years. I am also a wife of almost 25 years and a mother for 20 years, over 20 years, and an employee and active volunteer in my church, in my parish, in my community, in every single school my kid has ever been to, my kids, 3 of them, and just pretty much any organization that we have ever been involved in. So, as you can imagine, my life can get a little bit busy sometimes, as I can imagine many of your lives are as well. So, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about finding my inner balance in life, and kind of the ways that I've done it. And I by no means am an expert on finding my balance, and I am always losing my balance along the way too. But I think that that's just part of being human. Father Mike Schmitz, in one of the podcasts that I was listening to the other day, said we are not called to be perfect, we are called to be faithful. And so that's what we're here today to do, is to be faithful, because in our striving to be faithful, we get to be closer to Jesus, who is the right person. So throughout my life, I have been a runner. I was a high school athlete and knew that I wasn't going to take it any further than high school. I wasn't very good, but at least it gave me some exercise. And so I hit the pavement after I graduated high school. I got the running shoes and I started running around the neighborhoods. And when I went to college, I started running around the university. And throughout my life, my young adulthood, I've been running. And when my kids came along, I found that I needed a little bit more balance and time, stress relief, and exercise to lose those pregnancy pounds. And so I started running even more. And I got really strong, and I started running half marathons. And to this day, I think I've run about 40 different half marathons. I got to a point where I was running about 3 half marathons a year. So that's pretty cool, right? And it was an accomplishment. It was a good goal to set for me so that I could achieve a goal. It was a good way of exercise. It was good stress relief. So I loved it, and I was strong and fit. But then I hit 40. And when I hit 40, it was a little bit of a surprise, and things started to hurt a little bit more, and I started getting injuries, all these things that I hadn't had to deal with in the past, and I was like, whoa, what happened here? But I didn't want to stop running, but I thought maybe I needed to change things up a little bit, and everyone kept telling me about yoga, and yoga was really good, and flexibility and stretching, and I wasn't very good at that, and so I was like, well, yeah, I'm pretty fit and strong, I'm going to go to a yoga class. So I went and got the mat, and I bought all the cute yoga clothes, and I got myself ready, and I went into my first yoga class, feeling very confident, right? And I got in, and there was lots of people around, and the only spot was in the front of the classroom, so I went up there thinking, oh, I could do this, I got this. And the net is, I couldn't hold a pose to save my life. I was falling all over the place. I was disrupting the class because I was falling over the place. No one else could find their balance too. And I was a bit of a hot mess in that class. And so I was very humbled when I left and a little surprised. And but you know, I picked myself back up and I kind of reflected on it. And I thought to myself, you know, for all of the strengths that I had in my body, my strengths were in my feet, they were in my legs, they were in my calves, but that's all I had done is run. And to hold your balance in those poses, you gotta have a strong core. Your body has to be strong from the inside, from the center of your body, your core. And I thought to myself, well, that's kind of the problem, is I really don't have a strong core. I've got strong parts of me, but my core is not strong. I can't balance. because only parts of me are strong. And as I reflected a little bit more on this, I thought to myself, you know, it actually really kind of ties in with my faith life too, and my spiritual life, as I can be strong in certain parts of my life. But if we're really going to be strong emotionally and mentally, as well as physically, we have to have a strong core. And just as your core physically is your muscles in your belly that keep us upright and that keep all of our center of gravity working well, our strength emotionally, our strength mentally is our core of our faith. And that's where we need to focus on developing if we want to find balance in our lives, is we have to develop that strong core through working on our faith. So I want to share with you a couple stories of just situations that I've had in my life. And it's funny, as we walked in today and as I was talking to some of you guys, it really kind of helped me see the some of the stories that I have. And one of the stories I wanted to tell you about is when I went back to work, one of my very first ministry engagements. So like many moms, I took off some time to raise my kids when they were little, and I absolutely cherished that time. But it was also hard too, because you lose, when you leave the workforce, you lose a little bit of your identity. And so coming back to the workforce, I had to juggle more things. And juggling my family and working, etc., which I know many of you guys know very well. So I took this job in nonprofit. I was running this children's camp, and we were developing the children's camp. And it was a children's camp teaching the kids how to serve and love in the hands of Jesus. And I call it VBS on steroids, because it took the concepts of VBS and learning to love and be passionate about your faith, but then it put it into action, our faith in action. And it taught the kids the next step of loving our neighbors and serving our neighbors in need. So it was busy though. You're starting a camp, you're starting a program, and as I'm watching Jose today, getting everything all set up and how perfect this venue was and how awesome the food is and all the beautiful jewelry and home decor we have in the back, it's a lot of work to get something like that set up. And it's a lot of stress, and you're getting up early in the morning, and when I went back to work, that's what I found myself doing. I stopped sleeping. I was up all night long, I tossed and turned. I could fall asleep fast because I was exhausted, but I couldn't stay asleep. My mind would turn on like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I would start thinking, oh my gosh, did we get the pretzels for the gluten-free child? Oh, did I send that message to that person? What am I going to talk about tomorrow morning? How am I going to say my prayer? I need to take notes. And so at first it started with just getting up and having a notepad. And then it turned into getting out of my bed and turning on the computer at 2 o'clock in the morning and typing away emails and writing notes to myself. And I really got fatigued and I got run down. And my friends, my family started noticing. And they were concerned about me. And I'm doing this all myself. I'm thinking about everything. I'm keeping it to myself. I'm trying to own everything myself. And some of my friends actually talked to me. They were like, hey, you got some serious anxiety issues right now. Like, you're running on a short fuse. And I knew it. And they're like, I think you need to go talk to a doctor about getting some medication. And I was like, wow. Like, no one's ever told me I needed to go get medicated for mental illness, mental health. I was kind of flabbergasted. I was shocked. I had never considered that before. And so I was kind of floored. And one of my friends came to me and she looked me dead in the face. And she said, have you given this up to God? And I was like, wow, that just sounded so simple. How come I hadn't thought about that? And so that night, I went to bed. I was tired. I got into bed, and I laid in my bed, and I closed my eyes, and I started to give it up to God. I prayed that He would let me remember all of the important things that He needed me to remember. I prayed that the words that came out of my mouth were not my words. They were God's words, and He was using my voice. I prayed that everything that needed to happen to make this program that I was running impactful happened. And I went to sleep. And you know what? I slept really well that day. And the next day I got up and I went and ran my program. And everything ran smoothly. And all of the important things that were really important, they were accomplished. I am sure that there were some things I did not remember, but guess what? None of them were necessary, because to this day I couldn't tell you what they were. So anything that God deemed unnecessary, he took that away. He took that off my shoulders. And I remembered all the things that were important. And the words that came out of my mouth that day were more eloquent and more impactful than anything that I have ever said. Because they were not my words. They were God's words coming through me. It was my faith in action. So I want to share with you guys just a passage that I think about often when I go through times like this. And it's from 2 Samuel chapter 22. It's verse 33. It is God who arms me with strength and keeps my ways secure. Only God is going to give us that core strength that we have inside of our body that's going to be able to help us stay balanced, stay upright, and keep it together. And we have to find that balance through Christ. The lesson I learned that day is I didn't need medication. I just needed God in my life, and I needed to invite him to be a part of my life. He's always there. He's always waiting for us every single day. But we have to actually go out and invite him to be a part of our life, because he's a loving God. He's not going to intrude in if we're pushing him away. But if we extend that invitation to God, he will be in there in every bit of it, enhancing every single thing that we do. He waited my invitation, and he waits your invitation too, to be a part of your lives. I want to share another story as well, and this this will probably reach out to some of the young moms, many moms who have already raised their kids too, or those of you who will be embarking on that journey one day. And it's about kind of balancing your work-life situation and kind of finding time in your day. So I get up every morning, pretty early in the morning, and this was no exception. I was up right early, about 5. I got breakfast ready, I got lunch boxes ready, I prepped the dinner, I got laundry running, I got my kids up and dressed, I got them out the door, I ran carpools to all the different schools because my kids are spread apart, so there are 3 different schools. I went to work out, and then I went and started my day at work. And then it digressed, and my day got a little out of hand, and I was running behind. Has that ever happened to anyone? Yes, right? It happens. So I was running behind, and things weren't going the way I needed them to go. And the rest of my day, I was going to go to a Bible study that I went to every week. It had homework. I was very ill prepared. I had not finished my homework. I had not spent enough time reflecting on what I needed to do and preparing. And after that, I ran a homeschool religious education program for my son and his friends. And I would go pick them up at school, and I would bring all these boys over to my house, like 10 boys, and I would feed them a bunch of these boy snacks, and then we'd sit down and have like a boy-focused religious education program. Try to bring the fun back in Catholic, because Catholicism is really fun. It really is. But sometimes we have to really put that extra effort. So I always did that. And I didn't have time for that either. So I was thinking through my day, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to skip Bible study. I'm going to skip Bible study. I'm not prepared anyways. I don't have anything to bring to the group, and it'll give me an extra 2 hours back in my day. That's how I'm going to accomplish my day. So I was going through mentally and arranging my day and just preparing to go down this path of skipping Bible study, and it just didn't sit well with me. It didn't feel right. I just had this gnawing suspicion and just feeling, and right at the end, even though everything logically was telling me that this was the right path, I decided to go to Bible study. And so I went over to Bible study, no books, nothing, not prepared. And you know what? It didn't matter. I still was able to be there. I was there with God. I made time in my day for God. I was able to contribute to the group. There were things that I could say. It didn't matter that I didn't have my notebook with me. It didn't matter that I didn't have my textbook with me, or that I hadn't done the homework. God allowed me to participate and contribute, and the things that I was filled with that day were just amazing. I was filled with so much insight and wisdom and peace from going and being with my Bible study group and spending time delving into God's Word. And then Bible study got let out 15 minutes early. And so all of a sudden I had 15 minutes, which doesn't seem like a lot, but to a super mom, you can get a lot done in 15 minutes. So I raced home and I got my snacks in the oven and I left them in the oven and I raced to the school and I picked up these kids and I brought them back. And I didn't have a time to do like a fancy lesson, but you know what? That wasn't what they needed that day anyways. They wanted to have more of a discussion and they asked amazing questions. So had I gone on my path and skipped and made this fancy lesson, we wouldn't have had this discussion time. They wouldn't have asked these very challenging and inquisitive, awesome questions about Catholicism. I wouldn't have been able to impart that wisdom on them. God worked in the ways that God always works, in his ways, and everything happened the way it was supposed to, even though I wasn't prepared. And so the lesson to me was you have to make time in your day for God, even when it seems impossible, even when logically you're telling yourself, I don't have that time to make. You have to make that time for God, because when we do make that time for God, the gifts are overflowing. He opens up so many doors for us. He gives us time back in our day. He fills us with peace and joy that we would never have had we not invited him into our day. So make that time for God, because it will come back with you in spades. Psalm 16, verse 11. You make known to me the path in life. In your presence there is fullness and joy. When I listen to God, my path is clear. When I don't listen to God, my path is jumbled. So take time in your life to make time for God and listen to what he's saying. So there are many, many different ways that you can exercise and get strong, right? And the same is true for strengthening your core, for finding your balance, right? To find your balance, you need to have a strong center of gravity. You need to have a strong core. And there are many ways that we can strengthen our faith core. But I want to share with you 3 ways today that work really well for me. The first way is make time for God every day, just like we talked about. Prayer and time in your day. I'm a morning person, but each of us is different. Some people function really great in the evening. I don't. I function first thing in the morning, and I make that time for God. And you can do it a million different ways. You can have a conversation with God like we're having right now, like I'm having at you right now. But we can have a conversation with God and just telling God, like, oh my gosh, this is what's going on, and I need your help, and blah, blah, blah. You can, a lot of times I'll just sit and listen to music. My very favorite song in the whole Christian song ever, and it's old, but it was the most impactful song to me, is I Can Only Imagine by Mercy Me. Has anyone ever heard it before? Okay, so that song, I don't know what it is about that song. If you haven't, write it down and Google it. I Can Only Imagine, Mercy Me. But I would put on my earphones, and I would lay in the dark, and I would close my eyes, and I would turn that song on pretty loudly, and I just felt like I was transported. And that song is divinely inspired. If you ever get a chance to read the story behind it, it's absolutely an amazing, miraculous story. But that song, every time I listen to it, my heart swells so much and expands, I can barely keep it in my chest, and I just feel God's presence all around me just by listening to a Christian song. That's a form of prayer. But I spend my time in that form of prayer sometimes. I also love to listen to podcasts. I'm following Father Mike Schmitz right now on Bible in a Year podcast every single day. When he opens up, some of the passages are Bible passages and they're hard, and he admits that they're hard. And I think to myself, I'm like, oh, today's going to be the day. Not going to happen. I'm not going to get anything out of this. And then lo and behold, somewhere along the words and somewhere along his description and summary of what just happened in the Bible, I get some wisdom, piece of wisdom that comes my way just because I spent that time with him. He talks to me through scripture every single day. So podcasts are awesome. YouTube, another great one. You can go to YouTube and you can Google 5-minute Christian meditation, 15-minute Christian meditation, 20-minute Christian meditation, whatever you have time for. Some time is better than no time. And so I'll do that in the mornings too, and just Put my earphones on and spend 10 minutes meditating with God, spending that time with God, being still with Christ. Go outside, have a cup of coffee, look around you, enjoy his splendor, watch the sun come up, look at the intricate details on every tree and leaf. That's spending time with God. All of that is ways you can spend time with God. There's no right or wrong way to do it. You just have to go out and make time and find your way to do it. But that's the number one lesson. Make time for God. Put him in your day, because that's the most important thing you can do. Second one is, don't compare yourself, because we're all different. And I just gave you 1,000 different ways you can connect through prayer, and you might find one that really works for you, and someone else might find something different that works for them. We are all made in God's image, perfectly, wonderfully, fearfully made in God's image, but we are all made to be unique and different. He doesn't want us to be the same. He doesn't want us to pray to him the same. He wants us to find our way to connect with him. And don't compare yourself to other people who are in your situation. Don't compare yourself to, if you're a mom, don't compare yourself to other moms and how much they're getting done in the day and what they're able to accomplish. Because I can tell you, I look at some of my mom friends and I am in awe. Like every thank you, I'm horrible about thank you notes. Every thank you note, they've got it written on time within a day of the event. They have shown up at every single event that's out there when I can barely manage to get myself to one. They are I'm just in shock of everything that they can accomplish. And then I look on the reverse side and I see some moms looking at me and they're like, oh my gosh, how do you do it? 3 kids, working, volunteering, like how do you fit it all in? How do you do it? We're all different. And each of us is going to have a different amount of things that we can accomplish and do well at accomplishing. And comparing ourselves to one another isn't the answer. It's inviting God into our day and seeing what God and you can do together that day. Because our lists are different, and the amount of things and time that it takes for each one of our things are different. One of my favorite things to do in life is, after I've had a busy day, I keep a little spreadsheet of all my activities and all my things that I've got to do, and I go cross them off. Does anyone like to make lists and cross them off? I love to make lists and cross them off. And I'll actually go on at the end of my day, and I'll put a bunch of things on that I did and still cross them off, because that makes me feel good of all the things I was able to accomplish. And that's what you got to do, is don't look at what you haven't accomplished and compare yourself. Look at everything you did do and be happy about that. Be satisfied with what you were able to get done with Christ that day, because it's truly a gift every single time. The third thing I want to impart is develop a routine. We are all going to fail. You're going to do great, like 3 days, it's like a diet, right? You go on a diet and you're so good the first day, and the second day you're it's a little harder, but you're still really good, and then the third day you have that piece of cake and you fall apart. And then you just want to beat yourself up over it. But if we develop a routine, it's a lot easier to pick ourselves up and start again. My routine is I wake up every morning at 4:40 in the morning. It's very early, and I didn't think I'd ever do that, but it's the only time of day that I actually have my very own space by myself that I know no one else is going to be up. And I take that time and I find my method of being with God, and it's my special time. And sometimes I don't wake up at 4:40. Sometimes I need to sleep in, and that's okay too. But having that routine there, knowing that my alarm is set for 4:40 and that's my routine, makes it a lot easier if I've messed up one day to get right back on the wagon and start over again. So develop a routine for yourself. Don't strive for perfection. Strive to be faithful, because that's all God is calling us to do in this life. And when you're faithful, and when you practice building your faith and strengthening your core, you're going to find your balance starts to come to you. By the way, I know I'm a certified yoga instructor, so things can come full circle when you just work hard and find your balance. So thank you so much. Enjoy all of the beautiful things that we have today in the back room for purchase. There's beautiful necklaces and home decor and this awesome lunch. And thank you for letting me come and speak to you guys today.
Thank you. Thank you.